curse in the amulet. The black soil, hidden deep beyond Anatolia's desolate mountains, lay a small village so remote that it was barely marked on maps when you walked along its stony paths. The sound beneath your feet was not only the crunch of rocks, but also the whispers of something ancient, something cursed. The villagers knew this well. At night, no one dared to step outside, and doors were always locked with heavy bolts, because in this village the night did not belong only to humans. In this village lived the Demir family, a family trapped by a fate they could not escape. The father, Hussein, was a hard-working farmer, tied to his land, living off his sweat. His wife Aishi was quiet and deeply faithful, always whispering prayers under her breath. They had 2 children, their son Amir and their little daughter Zainab. At first glance they looked like an ordinary peaceful family, but anyone who approached their house would feel an invisible weight in the air, as if the walls themselves were suffocating. Rumors had long haunted the village. Many years ago, a feud had erupted between Hussein's grandfather and a neighbor. People whispered that dark magic had been used for revenge. Time had buried these stories in silence. But curses do not die. They wait, and now, this one had awakened. As the sun set, the shadows of the trees stretched across the Demir family's house, drawing sinister shapes on the windows. Returning from the fields, Hussein left a pile of soil by the front door. That night, Aishi noticed something strange. In the middle of that soil lay a single black feather. Her heart sank, for she remembered what the village's oldest woman once said. Sorcerers used black feathers to summon demons. At midnight, strange noises echoed inside the house. First, the faint scratching from the beams above, as if something were crawling along the rafters. Then, the doors began to rattle one by one, though no wind was blowing outside. Hussein muttered, "It's just the wind," but even he could hear the silence pressing down on the night. Meanwhile, little Zainab tossed restlessly in her bed. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. The ceiling above was cloaked in pitch darkness. Yet within that darkness, something moved, a long, thin shadow. It resembled a human, but its arms were far too long. Slowly, it descended from the ceiling and glided toward her. Zainab tried to scream, but no sound escaped her throat. It was as if invisible hands were choking her. Her eyes widened in terror as the shadow leaned closer. When its face emerged, she saw its eyes. Black hollows, bottomless and empty, like open graves. Then, in a blink, the shadow was gone. Zainab collapsed back onto her pillow, drenched in cold sweat. By morning, her mother Aishi found her trembling, whispering incoherent words. But in the corner of the room, something was waiting. A withered, ancient amulet, wrapped in yellowed cloth. Neither Aishi nor Hussein had ever seen it before. And the smell, only those inside the house noticed it, a stench of burnt flesh mixed with damp rot. For the Demir family, the nightmare had only just begun. The secret of the amulet. The amulet lay in the corner of Zainab's room, its cloth yellowed with age, its strings brittle as if they could snap at any moment. Aishi picked it up carefully, her fingers trembling. A foul stench rose from it, burnt flesh, old blood, and mold. She covered her nose and whispered, "Who put this here?" No one answered. Hussein denied ever seeing it before, and Emir swore he had not entered his sister's room. But Aishi remembered the black feather she had seen in the soil outside the night before. A chill ran down her spine. These things were connected. That evening, Aishi took the amulet to Fatma 9, the oldest woman in the village. Her back was bent, like a question mark. Her eyes clouded with age, but her voice carried a weight that demanded silence. Fatma 9 held the amulet, muttered a few prayers, and then suddenly dropped it as if it had burned her hand. "This," she hissed, "is no ordinary amulet. It carries a curse older than you, older than your house, older even than this village." Ashi felt her knees weaken. But who would do this to us? Fatma Nine's wrinkled lips trembled. "Your husband's grandfather. He was cursed long ago. Blood spilled between families. The curse was written into soil, sealed into objects, buried under roots. Such things do not die with time. They wait until someone stirs them again." Ashi begged her to destroy it, but the old woman shook her head violently. "No one can destroy what was written with blood. The more you resist it, the stronger it becomes. All you can do is pray." But she paused, staring at Ashi with her milky eyes. "If the child saw shadows, then the curse has already awakened. It will not stop until it takes what it was promised." Terrified, Ashi carried the amulet back home, wrapped in cloth, praying under her breath. But that night, the family felt the curse's grip tighten. The house groaned as if it were alive. Rafters cracked with unseen weight. Footsteps echoed in the hall even when no one was there. Doors slammed without wind. The smell of the amulet began to spread, seeping into every corner of the house. Zainab grew restless, muttering in her sleep. Sometimes she spoke in a voice that was not her own. Deep, guttural, rasping words in a language no one understood. Emir, her brother, woke one night to see her sitting at the edge of her bed, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. "Zainab," he whispered, but she did not answer. Instead, her lips curved into a slow, unnatural smile. Then, in a voice far too deep for a child, she said, "They are already here." Emir froze in terror, his body refusing to move. At that moment, the candle on the nightstand flickered violently and went out, plunging the room into complete darkness. From the shadows came a sound, scraping, dragging like claws against wood. The nightmare had crossed the threshold. The curse was no longer bound to the amulet. It had entered their home. When the demons arrived, the Demir household no longer felt like a home. Every corner seemed to breathe. Every shadow seemed to move. The air was heavy, suffocating, filled with the stench of the amulet. Hussein tried to convince himself that these were tricks of the mind, but each night proved him wrong. It began with whispers, at first faint, like the rustling of leaves, then clearer, voices murmuring from the walls, from beneath the floor, from the very soil the house stood upon. Sometimes it was laughter, hollow and mocking. Sometimes it was crying, long and agonizing. One night, as Ashi prepared to pray, her prayer beads snapped in her hands. The beads scattered across the floor, rolling into the dark corners. She bent down to gather them, but froze. From under the bed, two pale hands reached out, fingers long and thin, nails blackened and cracked. They clawed at the scattered beads, dragging them into the shadows. Ashi screamed, and Hussein rushed in, but when he looked, there was nothing under the bed. No hands, no beads, only darkness. Meanwhile, Emir had grown silent, withdrawn. He refused to leave his sister's side, even when she spoke in that other voice. One evening, he whispered to his parents, "She's not alone at night. Something sits with her. I can see it." That same night, Zainab woke screaming. The family ran to her room and froze at the sight before them. Zainab was levitating above her bed, her small body stiff as wood. Her eyes rolled back, showing only the whites. Around her, the walls shuddered violently, and the windows rattled, as if an unseen storm had trapped itself inside. Hussein shouted prayers, his voice shaking, but the words seemed powerless. Then Zainab's mouth opened wide, too wide for a human child. A guttural voice, layered with many tones, spilled out. "This house is ours. This blood is ours. You cannot take her back. The lights flickered and burst, plunging the house into darkness. Only the moonlight from the window lit the room, and in that pale glow, shadows began to crawl along the walls, multiplying, stretching. Faces formed in the darkness, twisted, eyeless, grinning. Aish clutched her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her face. Please, please let her go, she begged. But the voices only laughed, echoing through the house, rattling the very bones of those inside. For the Demir family, there was no more denying it. The curse was no longer a whisper of the past. The demons had arrived, and they had no intention of leaving. The final ritual, the Demir family could no longer live in denial. Their home was swallowed by darkness, their nights filled with screams and shadows. Something had to be done, or the curse would take them all. Desperate, Hussein returned to Fatma 9, the oldest woman of the village. She listened in silence as he described the horrors, her face pale as wax. Finally, she whispered, "The curse cannot be broken, but it can be sent back, if you are willing to risk everything." She gave Hussein instructions for a ritual older than memory itself. It required faith, sacrifice, and the strength to face what was hiding behind the veil of this world. Trembling, Hussein carried the instructions home. That night, as the moon hung full and cold above the village, the family gathered in the main room. The amulet was placed in the center of a circle of salt. Candles flickered, their flames bending unnaturally, as if something unseen was breathing on them. Aishi clutched her children close, whispering prayers through trembling lips. Hussein began the ritual, his voice cracking but steady. The words felt heavy, burning his throat as he spoke them. Shadows stirred in the corners of the room. Zainab's body convulsed violently, her eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. That guttural, layered voice rose again from her mouth. "You cannot take her. She belongs to us. This blood is ours." The windows shattered inward. A freezing wind filled the room, extinguishing half the candles. The salt circle quivered as if something enormous pressed against it from the outside. Faces twisted in the dark, whispering and laughing. Hussein's voice grew louder, desperate, as he repeated the words. Aishi screamed prayers, clutching Zainab's hand. Emir, though terrified, stood beside his father, holding a candle high. Then it happened. Zainab arched her back, letting out an unearthly scream that shook the walls. The amulet in the circle began to smoke, then burst into flames without burning the cloth around it. The shadows writhed, shrieking, clawing at the air, trying to escape. But the ritual was stronger. With one final cry, Zainab collapsed into her mother's arms. The flames from the amulet roared, then vanished, leaving only black ash in the circle. The whispers stopped. The house fell silent. For the first time in weeks, the Demir family breathed in peace. The curse seemed to be gone. But as Hussein swept away the ashes, his hand froze. Beneath the burnt remains of the amulet lay something small, half buried in the salt. Another feather, black, fresh. His blood ran cold. He stared at it, realizing the truth. The ritual had not destroyed the curse. It had only awakened something older, something still waiting. And in the silence of the night, from the soil beneath the house, a faint whisper rose. This is only the beginning.